The early life and educational experiences of Xi Jinping provide crucial insights into the formation of one of the most powerful leaders in contemporary China. Born on June 15, 1953, in Beijing, Xi Jinping's youth was marked by extraordinary privilege followed by profound hardship, experiences that would fundamentally shape his worldview and approach to leadership. His educational journey, interrupted by political upheaval and marked by both traditional academic learning and hard-won practical experience, offers a window into the complex forces that molded China's current leader. Understanding these formative years is essential for comprehending not only Xi Jinping's personal development, but also the broader context of Chinese leadership formation during one of the most tumultuous periods in modern Chinese history. Xi Jinping's earliest years were spent in an environment of considerable privilege and political prominence. As the son of Xi Jinping, a staunch revolutionary and a founder of the People's Republic, Xi Jinping enjoyed a privileged childhood until Xi Sr. fell from grace during the political upheavals of the 1960s. His father, Xi Jinping, was a veteran revolutionary who had participated in the Long March and held significant positions in the early People's Republic of China. This connection to the revolutionary elite provided the young Xi Jinping with access to the best educational opportunities available in Beijing and exposure to the highest levels of political discourse and decision-making. The Xi family residence in Beijing was located in Zongnanhai, the compound that serves as the headquarters of the Chinese Communist Party and the residence of top leaders. This proximity to power meant that Xi Jinping's childhood was spent in an environment where political discussions were commonplace and where the machinery of government was a daily reality. The young Xi was exposed to conversations about policy, ideology, and governance from an early age, providing him with insights into the workings of power that would prove invaluable in his later career. His educational experiences during these early years took place at elite institutions designed to educate the children of the revolutionary elite. The trajectory of Xi Jinping's comfortable childhood changed dramatically when his father fell victim to the political purges that characterized the early 1960s. Xi Jinping was accused of supporting an allegedly anti-party novel and was subsequently removed from his positions and subjected to political persecution. This fall from grace had immediate and profound consequences for the entire Xi family, including the young Xi Jinping. The family's privileged status was revoked, and they faced social ostracism and political stigma that would follow them for years to come. The onset of the Cultural Revolution in 1966 marked a particularly traumatic period in Xi Jinping's youth. His father was almost unbelievably strict. He attended a school known for its macho relations among students. He was harassed in Beijing during the early years of the Cultural Revolution, and his time as a sent-down youth was particularly brutal in terms of both physical and emotional hardship. The young Xi, now a teenager, found himself navigating an increasingly hostile environment where his family's political background made him a target for harassment and persecution. The educational institutions that Xi Jinping attended during this period were themselves caught up in the revolutionary fervor of the time. Traditional academic curricula were abandoned in favor of political education and revolutionary activities. Students were encouraged to participate in criticism sessions, political rallies, and other forms of ideological engagement that prioritized political correctness over academic achievement. For Xi Jinping, whose family background made him politically suspect, these educational experiences were particularly challenging and formative. The most significant educational experience of Xi Jinping's youth came not in a traditional classroom, but in the rural villages where he was sent as part of the down to the countryside movement. Soon after, 15-year-old Xi was sent down to a remote village where he labored for several years on an agricultural commune. Rather than feel bitter toward the Communist Party for his family's difficulties, Xi became determined to join the party, applying for membership multiple times before being accepted. This experience of being sent to the countryside was shared by millions of Chinese youth during the Cultural Revolution, but for Xi Jinping, it represented both a personal ordeal and a transformative educational experience. The village where Xi Jinping spent 7 years of his youth was Liangjiahe, located in Yanchuan County in Shanxi Province. This remote and impoverished village became the site of what many consider to be Xi Jinping's most important educational experience. Even though he never completed high school, the true education of Xi Jinping started from the village where he worked. His good relationship with the village folk paved the way for his eventual rise through the ranks of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. In 1974, he became an official party member, marking the beginning of his formal political career. The experience of living and working in Liangjiahe exposed Xi Jinping to the realities of rural Chinese life in a way that no formal education could have provided. He participated in agricultural labor, lived in cave dwellings, and experienced the daily hardships faced by China's rural population. This exposure to poverty and hardship, combined with his earlier experiences of privilege and persecution, provided him with a unique perspective on Chinese society that would later influence his approach to governance and policymaking. The educational value of Xi Jinping's time in the countryside extended beyond mere exposure to rural life. The experience taught him practical skills, developed his physical and emotional resilience, and provided him with insights into the challenges facing China's development that would prove crucial in his later career. Propaganda has stressed how the leader grew and matured through his years in the countryside. But in truth, the lessons he took from his family's suffering appear more complex and ambiguous. The official narrative emphasizes the positive aspects of this experience, but the reality was likely more nuanced and psychologically complex. The social dynamics of village life provided Xi Jinping with a different kind of education in human relationships and leadership. Unlike the formal hierarchies of Beijing political life or the ideological rigidity of Cultural Revolution-era schools, village life required more subtle forms of influence and cooperation. Xi Jinping's ability to build relationships with villagers and eventually earn their respect and trust demonstrated leadership qualities that would serve him well in his later political career. The skills he developed in navigating local politics and building consensus would prove transferable to higher levels of governance. The absence of formal educational opportunities during his time in the countryside did not prevent Xi Jinping from pursuing intellectual development through reading and self-study. Despite the limited availability of books and the political restrictions of the time, he managed to continue his education through voracious reading whenever materials were available. This period of self-directed learning helped to develop his analytical skills and broadened his intellectual horizons beyond the narrow confines of official ideology. The transition from village life to formal higher education came when Xi Jinping was selected to attend Tsinghua University as a worker-peasant-soldier student. From 1975 to 1979, Xi Jinping studied chemical engineering at Tsinghua University as a worker-peasant-soldier student in Beijing. This opportunity represented a significant milestone in his educational journey and marked his return to formal academic study after years of practical experience in the countryside. The worker-peasant-soldier student program was designed to provide educational opportunities to individuals who had gained practical experience through manual labor and political activity rather than through traditional academic achievement. The educational environment at Tsinghua University during Xi Jinping's time was markedly different from the institution's pre-Cultural Revolution character. The emphasis on political education and practical application meant that even technical subjects like chemical engineering were taught within a framework that prioritized ideological correctness and social relevance. For Xi Jinping, who had spent years in practical rural work, this approach to education likely resonated with his own experiences and provided a bridge between his practical knowledge and formal academic study. The choice of chemical engineering as a field of study reflects both the practical orientation of education during this period and the emphasis on technical skills that were seen as essential for China's modernization. Xi Jinping's academic performance during his time at Tsinghua was reportedly solid, though not exceptional, and his fellow students remembered him as hardworking and politically engaged. The skills and knowledge he gained through his engineering studies would later prove valuable in his understanding of technical and industrial policy issues. The social environment at Tsinghua during Xi Jinping's time was characterized by intense political activity and ideological ferment. Students were expected to participate in political study sessions, criticism meetings, and other forms of ideological engagement that were considered essential parts of their educational experience. For Xi Jinping, who had already demonstrated his political commitment through his village work and party membership, These activities provided opportunities to further develop his political skills and understanding of party doctrine. The friendships and networks that Xi Jinping developed during his time at Tsinghua would prove significant in his later career. The connections formed during university years often become important sources of support and collaboration in Chinese political life. And Xi Jinping's Tsinghua network would include individuals who would later hold important positions in government and industry. These relationships, forged during a formative period of shared study and political activity, would provide a foundation for future cooperation and mutual support. The completion of his studies at Tsinghua in 1979 marked the end of Xi Jinping's formal educational journey, but it also represented the beginning of his professional career in the Chinese Communist Party. The timing of his graduation coincided with the beginning of China's reform and opening up period, which would create new opportunities and challenges for young party members like Xi Jinping. The combination of his rural experience, technical education, and political commitment positioned him well to participate in China's modernization efforts. The educational experiences of Xi Jinping's youth were shaped by the unique historical circumstances of his time, but they also reflect broader patterns in Chinese education and leadership development. The combination of privilege and hardship, formal study and practical experience, urban sophistication and rural authenticity that characterized his educational journey represents a particular approach to leadership formation that has been influential in Chinese political culture. The emphasis on learning through practical experience and ideological commitment, rather than purely academic achievement, reflects values that continue to influence Chinese educational and political systems. The psychological impact of Xi Jinping's educational experiences during his youth cannot be underestimated. The transition from privilege to persecution, from urban comfort to rural hardship, and from political ostracism to party membership would have profound effects on his understanding of power, society, and human nature. These experiences likely contributed to his later emphasis on discipline, loyalty, and the importance of maintaining party unity and control. The lessons learned during his formative years about the consequences of political instability and the importance of strong leadership would influence his approach to governance throughout his career. The international context of Xi Jinping's educational experiences also deserves consideration. His youth coincided with a period of relative isolation for China, when foreign influences were limited and educational exchanges with other countries were minimal. This meant that his understanding of the world was primarily shaped by Chinese sources and perspectives, with limited exposure to alternative viewpoints or educational approaches. This insular educational environment may have contributed to his later emphasis on Chinese values and his skepticism of foreign influences on Chinese education and culture. The gender dynamics of Xi Jinping's educational experiences reflect the broader patterns of Chinese society during his youth. The educational institutions he attended were predominantly male, and the rural work experience was particularly challenging for young women. His educational journey took place within a system that, while officially promoting gender equality, maintained traditional gender roles and expectations. These experiences would have shaped his understanding of gender relations and family dynamics in ways that would influence his later policy positions and personal relationships. The relationship between Xi Jinping's educational experiences and his later political philosophy is complex and multifaceted. The combination of Marxist-Leninist ideology, practical experience, and technical knowledge that characterized his education provided a foundation for his later synthesis of traditional Chinese values with modern political and economic concepts. His educational journey helped to shape his understanding of the relationship between theory and practice, between individual ambition and collective responsibility, and between Chinese traditions and modern requirements. The role of mentorship and guidance in Xi Jinping's educational development was crucial, though it took many different forms. From his father's early influence to the village elders who taught him about rural life, to the professors and party officials who guided his university studies, Xi Jinping benefited from the guidance of numerous individuals who helped shape his intellectual and political development. These mentoring relationships provided models of leadership and sources of wisdom that would influence his own approach to leadership and guidance of others. The evolution of Xi Jinping's educational philosophy, as reflected in his later policies and statements, can be traced back to his own educational experiences during his youth. His emphasis on practical learning, ideological commitment, and the importance of understanding Chinese conditions reflects the educational approach that shaped his own development. His later reforms of Chinese education, including the emphasis on political education and the integration of practical experience with formal study, draw directly from the educational model that he experienced during his formative years. The legacy of Xi Jinping's educational experiences extends beyond his personal development to influence his vision for Chinese society and education more broadly. His understanding of the relationship between education and political development, between individual growth and social responsibility, and between Chinese traditions and modern requirements has been shaped by his own educational journey. These experiences have contributed to his approach to educational reform and his vision for the development of Chinese human resources in the contemporary era. The study of Xi Jinping's youth and educational experiences provides valuable insights into the formation of contemporary Chinese leadership and the broader patterns of Chinese political development. His educational journey, marked by both privilege and hardship, formal study and practical experience, illustrates the complex factors that shape political leaders in the Chinese context. Understanding these formative experiences is essential for comprehending not only Xi Jinping's personal development, but also the broader dynamics of Chinese politics and society in the contemporary era.